All right, welcome back. I am excited, but I'm nervous. We have a lot to talk about today, and we're gonna try to cover a lot of things. Well, I think I have a lot to talk about, and some of it will be a surprise even to you, my dear father. If I'm a little bit hoarse, I'm just recovering from COVID, so I apologize if I'm a little bit uh nasty sounding, but I'm
Horse,
happy to be back. Sorry?
or if you're a little bit
If
hoarse,
I'm a little bit hoarse, if I'm a little bit congested, definitely feeling a lot better, but thankful that we record these episodes online.
horse walked into a bar, bartender said, "Hey, by the long face."
Anyway, so this is the last episode of the podcast we'll ever be recording. I can't deal with my father's jokes anymore, so that's the big
That was freaking awesome.
pretty classic dad joke. But how are you? Tell everyone how you're doing.
Why do you even ask this anymore? I'm always fabulous.
Well, I don't know. It's just part of my vernacular. It's like,
Well, as we were talking about yesterday, I was working in the snow and my hands were so cold that they were hurting. And you knew that I put a nail through my hand, right?
I did know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did I talk about that last episode?
No, I
Where
don't think
when
you
I
did.
Well, anyways, yeah. So my hands have taken a little bit of beating lately.
Yeah,
More of a beating. Like my hands have not had a good life.
no kidding. So if you guys want to sponsor us, we can buy Trainer Ben a pair of gloves so that his hands will be nice and warm. So for in the arms of the angel, your sponsorship can buy a Trainer Ben gloves for his little hands today.
Uh, my dainty little hands have just taken so much abuse over so many years. It's
hmm
just so they're just like tapping out there, like no boss,
Please,
no
no.
boss.
Well, yeah, like anytime I look at your hands, you've got new scars. It's like your hands
Oh,
look like Frankenstein because they're all like scarred up and stuff. It's kind of gnarly.
I know. Like I remember I used to be able to like, oh yeah, this scar is from this and this scar is from that. Now it is they're just all mixed into one,
Mm,
basically. I don't even know
yeah.
what they are anymore.
They're just the story of your life, which is a
Yeah.
great segue into the first part of what we're going to talk about today, which is our last episode, which was with our wonderful friend, James Gardiner, who is the author of All In With Love, My Journey to the Hero Within.
The amazing James Gardiner.
The one, the only James Gardiner.
He
Uh,
always does. He always says that with me. Actually, I said that even on the episode.
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah,
the amazing.
the amazing. Yeah, so what I will start by saying before we get too into this is James is a very, very well-spoken, articulate, and charming individual. And if you want to actually hear about the book and learn more about it, I would definitely suggest watching and listening to his episode because I mean, yeah, we love James here, where James stands. And yeah, so definitely listen to the episode because I doubt we'll do it justice, which I think is par for the course. Definitely listen to the original episodes and we just kind of chat about them in our loose, casual way. But I thought it was a great episode. I mean, you and James always have amazing chemistry. And like I think I said on that social post, your inner children get along really well. So it's always
Yeah.
fun to see you interact. I like that. I think that's
is
cool.
it's all it is fun to interact with him because we our backgrounds are so different. They almost could not be more different, and
Hmm
yet for some reason we just connect. I think because we both have had. I mean, his book I think is really amazing because it takes people through this journey of different worlds, right? Like being an actor in New York and LA and being, just the different avenues, being an athlete, being a very high level athlete, being an asthmatic kid who really had no right being as good of an athlete as he was, and so all the journeys of that, and so he lived in all these different lives, and so have I, but just very different lives. Like so I don't know. We some so for some reason we have a connection that way. We just really resonate with one another. We just get along. We're like kids, And yeah, I don't know. It's really fun to talk with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, his book sounds amazing. I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but I've seen him going on like book signing tours and doing
Yeah,
all of his stuff. His social media
I
is
know.
all about the book. It's amazing.
I know.
And hearing him talk about it made me want to read it more
Yeah.
because it's you can tell how passionate he is about it. I mean, obviously it's the story about his life, and it's you would hope that you would be passionate about your own life story, but and you asked some really good questions that brought up like him talking about his childhood, and I think him going through that and the way he describes it is so relatable in a way. You can relate to the feeling of being a kid and having, friends on your block and you're running down the street to go hang
Mhm,
out with your friends or you're riding your bike or whatever. I think we all have little childhood experiences that we can pull out that make it have that same sort of nostalgic feeling that we're drawn to.
mhm,
So it was interesting hearing him talk about it because, of course, I want to read his book. James is a good friend of ours. He works with us, and I would love to be able to support him in reading the book just as a friend. But
mhm.
it made it more interesting to me just being able to hear him talk about it and talk about how he feels about the book.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, definitely very interesting to hear him and just kind of see him just kind of light up about different things like related to the book or different
Hmm.
stories or whatever through the different podcasts I've heard. I actually haven't read the book either. I'm waiting for my copy. I mean, I bought it,
Mm.
so I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for my copy, but I think they're getting distributed.
Oh, okay.
So I should be getting mine any day now, and I'm gonna read it.
Maybe I'll be
Um,
borrowing your copy after.
well, I know so much about his story, but I'm still really kind of eager to read it, see how it all because he's such a great writer. Like
Hmm.
he's such a poetic writer. It's just he writes really beautifully.
Yeah.
You know, like my book. You know, I love my book. I freaking love my book. I don't think I could have done a better job telling it. But when I read his prose, like the way like the poetry of the way he writes, I'm just like then I look at mine. I'm just like, this is
Well,
beautiful writing. Mine's pretty down and dirty, gritty, and just to the point.
I think it's really indicative of the two different stories, though, because, like you said, your upbringings couldn't be more different, and the stories of your lives are completely different. Um, I think the way that James lives his life is very,
Natural.
yeah, yeah, and it's very, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, but it is a very beautiful way that he does things and articulates things and navigates through things in my experience, and he may disagree, but I think that they're two very relatable stories in a lot of ways, and one is a very beautiful articulation of the man's journey, and one is a very gritty, not so beautiful, kind of like ugly in a gritty real way, like very honest look at a man's life and what a man may go through in his life. And I think they're both important perspectives. I
Mhm,
think they're both important ways to acknowledge what someone goes through and what someone has to deal with to get to where they are now.
mhm, mhm. Which begs a question. So what do you think? What do you think people have this? Like, do you think people have this inherent desire to share their story? Generally, do you think that's true?
Um, I don't know if they have an inherent desire to share their story. I think they have an inherent desire to share a story. And for some of us, it is our stories. And for some of us, our stories are maybe not as interesting to us as we think they should be, or our stories, we're still navigating them and we're not comfortable telling them yet. I know that I'm someone who relates through anecdotes, and I always describe it to my friends as like I'm going off on an old woman storytelling thing. Cause I'm like, back in my day, me and my friends used to ride our bikes for 6 hours. Like one of those kind of stupid old stories. But it is how people relate to one another is through telling stories that they relate to or that they have experienced. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know that telling a person's life story is an inherent need, but I do think that the art of telling stories is what allows us to relate to one another, or one of
Hmm.
the pieces that does.
Well, I believe, and here, where is it? Do I even have that up here? Oh, I don't have the book. Oh yeah, I do actually. Just give me 1 second. I don't want to be rude.
He's being rude though.
I'm being rude though.
It's okay. My cat will fill in for him.
So this book, Story, I remember I was telling you about it, Story
Hmm.
by Robert McKee. He makes it so it's a big book, right? It's a script writer's book, like it's about script,
Hmm.
for movies, television, whatever. And I studied that thing, man. I got it all
Hmm.
highlighted. When I was kind of trying to learn the craft of writing, I really studied that book. But he is such a passionate believer in the fact that stories are just one of the most important things that like requirements of humanity and civilization, because it's how we learn, it's how we pass down information, it's how we understand how to act as human beings.
Hmm.
um, and so, like, people think sometimes stories are frivolous, but they're not. They're super, super important. And the reality is, all day, every single one of us is always telling a story. And you
Hmm.
may not think of it that way, but your life and every word that comes out of your mouth and every action that you make is telling a story. And you are the writer of that story, because you are the one that is able to make the choice based on your how you're feeling in the moment, right? So whether you're doing it subconsciously or unconsciously, we are always constantly telling a story. So
Hmm.
all of humanity is built on story. And I love the fact that in this book, he maybe doesn't say it quite like I just said it, but he says something along those lines of the importance of storytelling and how crucial it is to human beings to be able to like understand, to learn, to express, to teach.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, throughout all of history, I mean, they told stories on caves and caveman days, and they told stories through songs, and they told stories like all of human history is in many ways built on storytelling, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's true. And like you said, this is the way that we teach humans how to be humans without saying like you should say hi to someone when you meet them. You should be
Yeah,
kind to other people. Like it's through these like Aesop's fables and these children's
yeah.
books, and it's through all these um you know it's through the cultural fables that we have that teach us how to exist in the world. Without
Mm-hmm.
story, we'd all just kind of be babbling around making monkey noises still, which
But
I'm fine with, but
but even the stories that we tell in just like little coffee shops or whatever. Oh man, I saw this thing happen and it was
mm,
crazy and I didn't expect this, and wow, that was amazing. And then the big payoff, the climax, and wow, now I'm here having a coffee with you. Wow, that was amazing. What did you think about that? I thought that person was so brave. I thought that
mm,
person was a coward. I thought that person was a villain. I thought that person was a hero. This is storytelling on a day-to-day basis, right?
yeah. Hmm. Well, speaking of storytelling, I would like to tell you a small story, very small story. And it's that we got our Spotify. Well, no, it's more like news. Sorry, I said it's a story, but it's more like news. So we got our Spotify Wrapped today for the podcast, which is basically we've you and I have talked about the Spotify Wrapped, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so it basically just gives us a rundown of what our year was like as a podcast. So, sorry, there was a fruit fly. Okay, so over the last year, you and I have released 22 episodes,
Wow.
which has totaled 889 minutes of content.
Wow. That's crazy, eh?
That's so many minutes of content.
Wow.
We've talked a lot. Well, mostly you, but but you and
No,
I have
no.
created a lot of content over the
Wow,
last year.
that's amazing, eh? But it's all the way along it's been fun though. Don't you agree?
Hmm.
Like from the moment we started doing this podcast, we basically just showed up and had fun. It's never been like a chore. Or it's never been, well, at least for me, it's never been like, okay, we got to wrap this down. And what's the beginning? What's the end? What's the middle? What's the point? It's been like, oh, what do you want to talk about? Let's have some fun. Let's have a conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that I like about the podcast is we are able to just sit down and have a conversation. And like today before we got on, we were like, what all do we actually want to talk about? And we've known that we were going to talk about James's book for however long, like, a couple weeks now. But the day of, we're always able to sit down and go, okay, these are the points that I want to cover, but maybe we can also cover this. Maybe we can also
Mhm.
talk about this. So it's nice. It's awesome. And I think that to be totally conceited and like a little bit self-absorbed for you and I think that there is a part of this podcast that shows what the relationship between a father and daughter can look like when you're in the process of stopping generational trauma and you're in the process of dealing with pain and overcoming it and coming to the realization that it doesn't have to keep going and that pain is the root cause of a lot of these things. So it's interesting. It's interesting in a lot of ways, and I like it. I'm happy to still be doing this with you after it's this is year 3. Is it year 3 now?
I think we're going on to year three. Or maybe we already are. It's definitely been a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm. All through COVID, we've been doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. All through COVID, because we started right at COVID. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
This episode is brought to you by us and Facing Goliath. As you've probably heard by now, Ben's book, Facing Goliath, is coming out over the next year in 3 parts, and part 1 is now available to pre order until December 15th. You can buy the book on Kindle, or you can purchase the ebook and a 1-hour one on one session with Trainer Ben for you or a loved one on our website. And for Loving Goliath listeners, you can use code Goliath10 for 10% off both the book and this special one on one session. That's Goliath10 for 10% off. Thank you as always for your support. And now, back to the episode.
But with that said, we may be taking a little bit of a break over the holidays, and I might do some fancy editing finagling, and I may be able to just make it work. But as you all may know from the last 2 years, our famous trainer Ben, professor of sociology, psychology major, doctorate haver, trainer Ben Smith goes
Slash
away to
punchy.
slash punchy goes away to Mexico every year, which is very exciting. I'm very excited for you. You're leaving in 2 days.
That's right.
Yes. So so at the time you're all listening to this, he's packing to leave for
Yeah. Well,
Mexico.
by the time everybody's listening to this, I'm already gone. Yeah.
Well, they'll be listening to this tomorrow.
Oh, well, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're a little late and you're listening to this a week later, then he's already gone. So
Yeah, then
it's
I'm
too late
already
to say
gone.
goodbye.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you'll be away for a couple of weeks. So we won't have our trainer Ben. You may hear just from me, I'm not sure. But
Well, why can't we do a podcast while I'm in Mexico
I mean we can, but I was thinking it would be nice for you to have a little bit of a break.
though? Whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to
Well,
see. We'll have to see. It's all up in the air now.
it's true. We'll see we'll see where the wind takes us. But on the note of, taking a little bit of a break on the holidays and easing up, I mean, we've put out almost 1,000 minutes of content over the last year. So if you're missing us and you're in between episodes and we do end up taking a break, in the last year, there's almost 1,000 minutes of content. Over the last 2 years, we got a lot of content for you. So
Yeah,
don't worry.
you will never be lonely or miss us if you don't want to.
You never have to miss us, I assure you. But what I'll also say about that, just before we skip on, um, for 8, so our audience is growing, which is fantastic. It's amazing. But we were the top podcast, the top most listened to podcast for 8 people this year,
Oh,
right? Like,
That's pretty awesome.
isn't that crazy? 8 whole people listen to us more than any. There are so many way better podcasts, and yet we were the ones that they listened to.
Way better. That would say way better. I mean, it depends on what you want, right?
That's true.
You know, to tell you the honest truth, though, well, I believe. I mean, we've had a lot of episodes where we've talked about a lot of things, but I honestly, in all, I mean, humbleness aside, I believe that some of the episodes, like dealing with bullying and trauma and suicide, and some of our early episodes that were pretty hard hitting, I don't think you could. I don't think you could. If you're in that place, I don't
Mm,
think you could find better podcasts really because I mean we're honest about it. We're truthful about it. I spoke from the heart. Like I have
mm-hmm,
experience in those areas, so if you're somebody struggling and dealing with those issues, I don't I mean yeah Joe Rogan has more professional podcasts and different people have prettier ones and way more followers and this and that, but I don't think you can find a better one as far as honesty about the
mm.
issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think you and I, especially the more we've gone, the more honest. I mean, I think you've always been honest, but I think it's these conversations, it can be hard to publish them. Like,
Mm,
sorry. Um, like, wow, we're actually going to talk about taking your own life, and we're actually going to
mm-hmm.
talk like, geez, that's pretty heavy for a podcast to talk about. But you're right. And I mean, we've always been honest. We've always tried to speak from the heart. I know that my perspectives and opinions have changed, and I hope we've always been honest about if our perspectives do change, it's not that we're going back on our messaging, it's just that we're growing, learning individuals. And I've always
Well,
said I'm going on the journey with everyone listening. So I think your takes are always pretty consistent and mine will sometimes change, and I think that's good.
that is a good thing. You're supposed to grow, right? Especially when you're 30 or in your 30s or whatever. I mean, hopefully by the time you get to my age where you're in your 50s, you start to kind of settle down a little bit into some knowledge, but you're still going to grow. I'm still growing too, right? I had a big
Mm-hmm.
epiphany today about some things. I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh man." So I'm always excited to expand, but it's always but like as you get older, at least for me anyways, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but at least for me, it's like it's kind of like I always like to relate things to bodybuilding and fitness and whatever or boxing or something like that. It's like you know when you're learning how to box, it's all about balance and movement, having your hands in the right position and throwing the basic punches and this and that. But as you get up to higher and higher levels, those improvements become more and more minute. But then when you get something like a little like half step or a little feint that like they're just so minute that on a basic level, most people it's not going to impact, right? But
Hmm.
to you, it's like this is magical, and it's such a little refinement of those basics. So I still get that, right? Like I
Hmm.
have my basic foundational sense of self assurance, ease, and faith, and that's solid. That's never going to change for me. That will never ever change. I can guarantee that. But how like the little minute pieces of it are like these little victories of like, oh wow, like cool. I never thought of it that way. But they're
Hmm.
just part of the same foundation, right?
Hmm. Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I'm gonna bring it all to a close. I'm gonna tie it together. I'm gonna try really hard to tie it. That was a good
But
story. Yes?
by the way, I just got to say this thing. Tie as you tie this together, don't tie it like me because I don't know what it is. I've been tying things since I was like I don't know when I learned how to tie a bow. Like, but I've been tying I tie my sweatpants, I tie them with this and that, and I keep getting these knots and it just yanking on these knots. And I'm just like, oh no, I can't get out of this knot. Oh no, I can't get my sweatpants down. Oh no, I'm gonna pee my pants. Like it's
Okay.
just like what's happened to me? Like what?
I okay, but I okay, so I have my pajama pants on and they have like the long this thin one, this one
Yeah.
gets into knots all the time. And the amount of times I've tied it and then immediately gotten stuck and been like, oh, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, looking for a tool to like break it open because I'm suddenly stressed out that I'm not gonna be like I'm gonna pee my pants because I can't get my pants off. I'm like, I have to cut
Oh,
my favorite pajama pants because I tied the knot too tight. This is
that's
not
the
a this is
that's
just a
the
Smith
best.
thing. This is just a
Oh,
thing that
okay.
you and I
I'm
deal with.
I'm so glad it's not just me. 'Cause I'm just like, how can I be tying for 50 years and still tie like not be able to go to my pants? Just like this is so frustrating.
Yeah,
Somebody's trapped me.
because the tying is fine. You could tie the knot. It's the getting out of it that's a problem.
You,
And
you
you're
know, you know what it is in all transparency. It's not the knot itself. It's like I'm kind of dumb because I know the problem. The problem is in when that happens is because I have a knot within the. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Like I'm not within here. So if you
Mm.
have a knot within here, oh, within here, right? Like like that.
Right.
When you go to pull it out, it gets stuck on the knot,
But then you
right?
panic.
Then you panic,
Then
and
you
then you
panic and you're
finally,
yeah.
yeah, and then but then I'm dumb because I'm like, I'm finally get it out, but then I'm like, well, this knot's too tight now. I'll just leave it. I won't worry about it until tomorrow when I
Until
have to do
next
my
time.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. See, and we wonder how like fish get caught in a hook where you're like, "Oh, wouldn't that be sharp?" and you'd stop, but now we understand because we do it to ourselves every single day. We
Every
we
day.
we tie our pants too tight, go to unwind it, and then we're like, "Oh no, the knot's too tight. 911? Yeah, I tied my pants too tight again."
That
You got the fire department showing up with like the big pruning, the jaws of life to like break you out of your out of your sweatpants.
You can make me pee my pants right now, and I'm not gonna ever get back. I'm like, will I make me pee my pants?
I can't get my pants off fast enough.
Oh man, the jaws.
Oh
Oh,
Lord,
oh
I'm
man.
gonna sweat my eyebrows off.
Oh man, we're foolish. Shark's gonna give us so much crap.
Well, we just hide this episode from her. She'll never know.
Edit, edit, edit.
With that said, definitely check out our website to look at all the things about the book, Facing Goliath. You will probably hear an ad for the book during the course of this episode. So skip on over to our website. Yes.
And I just want to say really quickly. So, I mean, all the joking aside, as much as you and I joke and have fun, and I'm this jovial guy or whatever. Speaking of the book, my book or our book, Facing Goliath, that is that is very much for somebody that's looking for who needs to learn the story, like learn how to navigate toxic, environments, learn how to navigate addiction and alcoholism and violence and mental, the struggles like that. That's all joking aside. That book is I poured my heart and soul into that thing, and I feel like it's such a heartfelt guide to anybody who's struggling in those kind of ways, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like I say, whether it's violence or loss or depression or alcoholism or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep, I absolutely agree. And you can read more about it. I will tell you more about it. I probably already did by this point. So definitely check that out. That will be the first part will be available to actually read and have on your Kindle the 15th of December. But
Yay.
until then, thank you all so, so much for joining us as always. We appreciate you. We appreciate you listening to 889 minutes of content over the last year. And we can't wait to produce another 889 next year. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining us, as always. We love hearing from you, so if you have comments, questions about the episode, topics you want us to cover, or anything else, you can find us on Instagram as Loving Goliath, on Facebook as The Goliath Foundation. You can email us at lovinggoliath@gmail.com, or you can find out more information about the Goliath Foundation at thegoliathfoundation.com. Hey,
Did you know that 36% of our listeners tune in through Apple Podcasts? If that's you and you liked what you heard today, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.